Alright, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to go over, I was just reflecting on this at work and at home, some of the major categories of people, major divisions of people you'll find in the world. And the Quran talks about this stuff. God talks about the various types of people, and you will notice these patterns reoccurring throughout your life when you talk to different kinds of individuals. And, also this list that I've compiled, it's very good for us as well to reflect which side of the spectrum that we're on, which characteristics are we displaying in our lives. So the things that I'm telling you now, these all exist on a spectrum. It's not like one person is fully this side or fully that side. You either tend towards one way or tend towards the other way. It's very fluid. You shift between two different polarities. And for these little charts and dichotomies I'm going to give you, people can also be at different points on the chart at different times in their life, right? So like one example I have, this is either you see some people who are very worldly versus very hereafter oriented. You can either be closer to worldly, you can be closer to hereafter, and you can be at different points and different times in your life. Another thing is you tend to view the world the way you are as well. So if you are very worldly and you just all you see is wealth and homes and children and vain boasting, you tend to view the world in that way as well, and you tend to think other people think like you. That's just a common fallacy of human beings. We tend to think other people think like us. So if I'm just thinking about money all the time, I'm obsessed with money, I have a disease in my heart, I'm greedy, I'm withholding, I don't give charity, I don't remember God, I just think about getting the biggest pound of flesh I can possibly have in the life of this world, I inclined towards thinking that other people are the same way, that they're constantly thinking about money, that they're just as greedy as me, that they're just as untrustworthy as me. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And also hereafter oriented people, people who have a higher order thoughts, they think about God, they think about divine duty, they think about what's coming in the future life, that we tend to think that others think like us, but no, that's not the case. There are many who are superficial, right? We humans project, whether we're good and trustworthy people who have a good heart and don't try to cause harm to others, they tend to project that onto others and tend to get burnt and hurt sometimes. And conversely, bad, evil-doing, kafir, untrustworthy people, they tend to project that on others as well. So they may be dealing with somebody who has a clean heart, but they can't trust them. We project our view of the world onto other people. And also, each of these points I'm going to give you, some of them overlap with each other, right? They're not fully separate, but they highlight different parts of the human character. And what I'm giving you as well, this isn't some Myers-Briggs ridiculous personality test that I don't know why people take. I'm an INTJ, introvert, like just giving credence to your victimhood. No, this is real. These are real categories. I don't know why people, they like to identify with this stuff. I guess because it makes them feel special. Like the personality test will tell them, you only open up to your close relatives and friends, and you're very deep and thoughtful and highly sensitive. You feel emotion stronger than most people around you, and you intuit when something is wrong. Like just this, like, it just makes you feel special and important. These aren't real divisions of humanity. Okay, I'm about to give you real divisions, real categories that you can judge people on and know exactly who they are and judge yourself on. These secular psychologists, they'll treat your mistakes, your sins, and your flaws as if they're a valid personality type. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you real Quranic categories. So, I don't know, what will they say? Like, men, we should be social. We should not be afraid to go. I'm not saying vain speech and just talking just for the sake of talking. No, but we shouldn't be, when it comes time to stand up for the truth, to speak the truth, to go forward, we should not be shy. Being shy and afraid and timid is not a valid personality type for men. We need to be courageous and bold in the cause of God. Not obnoxious and vain, but regarding important matters, we should have the courage to go forward and speak about God. I do this, like, for example, whenever I'm walking around and I see Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons, and I'm not trying to boast of myself, but whenever I see Mormons, they're giving their shirk dawah, to another person. I see they're trying to wrap another person into this Jesus, Son of God, worshiping religion. I go straight into that with kindness and with respect. I just come in, I say, are you guys talking about God? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, can I join along? Can I say something? And they'll say, yeah, no problem. Naturally, they're very happy. And I just say, I just want to let you know that God has no son. And I invite you guys to read the Quran, because the Quran, this is the argument that God puts forward in the Quran, the final revelation of God, where he says, how can the Lord have a son when he has no consort? I just go in, and if you are shy, if you have this INTJ personality type or whatever nonsense they say, you're not going to be able to do that. But that's not a valid personality type. Men need to be extroverted. We need to go out and be courageous in the world. And even I would recommend you, with these categories I'm giving you, write them down, keep them on you, print them off, and reflect throughout the day and see which side of the spectrum you're behaving towards. So we begin with the first one, which I just gave away, is those who are worldly versus those who are hereafter oriented. This is a fundamental division in mankind. You have alladina amanu, those who aman, those who believe, they assent to the ways of their Lord, they assent to the doctrine of their Lord. And then you have those who are kafir, who basically, they don't regard higher order questions like, what is my purpose in life? Where am I going? Is there a point to all of this? They don't think about that. They think about the earthly plane and all of the wealth and riches that they can collect for themselves here. They don't think about the heavenly realm and what's going on in the hereafter. This is, probably the biggest division between people that the Quran talks about: the worldly versus the hereafter oriented. The next one is, excuse me, followers versus leaders. This is another big one. You have those who, and it's not necessarily bad, so long as you fulfill your role in piety and good faith and righteousness, then there's no complaint. But you have those who incline towards looking to others for guidance, looking to others for help, looking to others to tell them what to do, to put them on a path, to give them a task to accomplish. And then you have those who are leaders, those who tend to, by the leave of their Lord, they only look to God, and they find the task, they find that self-motivation. God gives them that motivation. They find things to apply their efforts and their skills towards. And this is the fundamental difference between a follower and a leader. A follower looks to others to give him a task, and think of like an employee, right? In that scenario, in that matrix, wherever you're working your regular job, you're a follower, right? The company owner, he is the leader, and he's giving you a task. And then the leader, he's the one who makes the tasks. He gives them to people, and he gives them to himself. The next dichotomy we have is selfish versus thinking of others. So we have those who tend to put themselves first. And these are usually people who are non-charitable. They are very withholding. And when it comes to comfort and ease and security, there are those who think about giving to themselves first, and then there are those who think of giving to others first, making others easier, sacrificing themselves to give another an easier time. And the selfish versus the thinking of others, this is these things, you'll see them manifest at a very early age. Some kids, they're just kind of bad. They just think of themselves. If you have let's say you have two kids and there's a pie in front of them, a full pie. There's that one kid who wants the full pie for himself, and there's the other kid who's willing to give his piece of the pie to the other to make him happy, right? This is just a fundamental difference between people. Those who have an ability to put themselves in another's shoes, and then those who they have a tough time crossing that bridge. They live within their own head and only think of the pain and discomfort that they go through. You have the next dichotomy is the analytical versus the emotional. So some people just have a better, more acute ability to analyze a situation when something comes in front of them that is giving them distress, that's giving them a hard time, to try as best as they can to back up from the whole thing, analyze it objectively, and from there see what is the best course of action. Whereas those who are emotional, and I would define emotional as those who, they act on first whim, they act on the first feeling that comes to them. So let's say I'm being instructed by another person. He's correcting me of one of my errors. And in the moment, I feel prideful. I feel a little angry because obviously it's not pleasant to be corrected in the beginning. Sometimes it takes time to collect yourself and accept that correction. The emotional person will be like, no, I ain't hearing it. I ain't hearing it. Don't tell me about that. Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? That's an emotional reaction. But the one who is analytical, he'll be able to back up from the whole situation and say to himself, yeah, you know what? I am doing wrong. I am doing wrong and I need to reform myself. So you have the analytical versus the emotional. Those are able to pull back, and those who act on first wind of passion that comes to them. Next, you have the comfort seekers versus the challenge seekers. Some people, they tend towards easiness and security, and it's somewhat of a natural situation to be like that. It's natural for the human, or the person at least, to incline towards making things easy for himself, but it can go too far, right? Then you get the example of those in the Quran who don't go alongside the messenger into battle. They make excuses. Oh, our children and our money, and sorry, our children and our wives, our households, we got to take care of them, and they make excuses. Versus those who seek challenge. You have the example in the Quran, it just came to my mind right now, of those who, when the multitude gather against them, they increase in faith and they say, to God be our return. This is just one of the fundamental differences between people. I tend to think, I'd like to think I incline towards the latter. One of the things that scares me the most is living a compromised, complacent, and comfortable life. Just easy, chill, relax, not bothering anybody, not saying any truth, not doing anything that is in a beneficial way risky. I'm not talking about going and picking fights with people for no reason on the street, but like genuinely going forward in the cause of God without fear, speaking the truth. This kind of comfortable life of just relaxing and keeping your mouth shut, that scares me. I want to do amazing things in the cause of my Lord. I'm willing to fight and die for my Lord. I'm willing to kill for my Lord and also be killed for the name of my Lord. I like that kind of thing. I like challenges in the cause of God. I like testing my faith. I like a situation which will force me to really trust in God to pull me through and to give me victory and success, to prove to myself whether I am truly faithful or not. Next you have excuse me. Next you have the grateful versus the ingrateful. And grateful people, in God in the Quran, obviously he extols gratitude as one of the principal virtues that a man or woman can possess. Grateful people, they tend towards thinking of their blessings and what they have right in their life, what's good in their life. Oh, at least and nothing's perfect, right? This isn't the hereafter, but they tend to think of what's right. Oh, what's right now is I have a roof over my head, I have a hot meal in front of me, I have clothes on my back, I have some money in my account, I have a wife who's with me, who supports me. They tend to focus on what's right, whereas ingrateful people, they tend to focus on what's wrong in their life, or at least what they feel is unpleasant. It may not be wrong, but they just feel that it's unpleasant. So, oh, I have less wealth than the neighbor. I'm driving a Honda Civic, but my neighbor is driving a Bentley or a BMW. Right? They tend to think of what's wrong or what's unpleasant. Oh, I'm only 5'10", but I want to be 6'3". Why can't I be big and strong like those guys? They tend to think of what's right, whereas the grateful person, he'll say, yeah, I'm 5'6", I'm 5'5", I'm 5'4". I'm not very, very tall, but at least thank God I have 4 limbs. I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm healthy, I'm strong. I'm able to take care of myself and work. Thank God. So that's the main difference in the psychology between the grateful and the ingrateful. The grateful tends to think of what's right and good, whereas the ingrateful tends to focus on what's wrong or what they don't like. Next, you have this is the difference between the believers and the mushriks, and those who focus on God versus those who focus on created things, focus on worldly things. So we, as believers, we are called to focus on our Lord alone. That is what monotheism is all about, turning towards God, turning towards the Almighty, looking to Him for guidance and help and strength. God alone is sufficient. God and His Word are sufficient. Whereas those who focus on created things, and these are mainly, you will find this human type in the larger religions like Catholicism, Sunnism, Mormonism. They look towards a church. They look towards the saints. They look towards the fathers. They look towards the scholars of their tradition. They look towards this hadith. They look towards imams. They look towards pastors. They look towards priests. This kind of overlaps with what I was saying about followers versus leaders. You get some people who are just sufficient focusing on God, which is a very, very, very small subset of humanity, minuscule in comparison to those who focus on created things. They need the religion, they need the fanfare, they need the priest to tell them. And this is just another difference between various types of people, those who focus on the Lord and those who focus on created things. Then you have the humble versus the proud. That's another big one. So the humble, they tend to think of their shortcomings and are prone to correction. So a humble person, like, let's say you have a star athlete, right? He's just blowing out the competition. He's just faster and stronger than everyone around him. A humble person might say, oh, well, you know, let's say we're talking about basketball, just as an example. He might say, even though he won the game and he's on top of the world, he's the captain of the team and there's nobody who can compete with him. He might say, oh, but I missed that shot you see in the third quarter. I could have got that. I need to work on my accuracy. I need to work on my long range shots. I still have a shortcoming that I need to rectify. Whereas the prideful person, the proud person, the one who waxes high concerning himself, he might say, oh, you know, I'm the best and nobody can compete with me. You know, this kind of Muhammad Ali vain boasting and pride. I'm going to show you how great I am. Just another difference between people. The humble, they tend to focus on their shortcomings where they lack and are prone to correction. You can tell them, hey man, you know, even though he's the best in the world, a humble person who's the best in the world, you can tell him, you're doing great. You're definitely on top of your game, but you missed that long range shot. I see you were missing quite a few long range shots in that basketball game. Let's focus on that. Let's work on that. Okay, you need to get better at that. And you'd be like, yeah, let's do that right now. Whereas the proud person would be like, no, who are you to tell me? I'm the best in the world. Why are you talking to me? I should be giving you lessons. You don't need to give me lessons. Know your place. So, you know, we as Quran believers, we should tend towards being humble, being prone to correction, being calm, and, you know, looking towards our Lord. Ultimately, it's the only person who has the true right to exalt is God, because God is inexorable, God is undebatable, God is incontestable. You can't fight with him. He is the everlasting, the perfect, the living, the magnificent, the brilliant, the shining. God Almighty has the whole of the heavens and the earth fully submitted to him, fully in subservience to him. And there's nobody that can contest his will. So that's why God exalts rightfully. And the humble person, he recognizes that. He lowers himself towards a power that's greater than him. Even though I'm the best basketball player in the world, I'm still weak. I can get a heart attack at any moment. I can get my legs broken. Anything can happen. It's God who is greater than me. Whereas the proud person, they tend to be more kafir. They tend to be more atheistic in their charge because they don't accept any power that's greater than themselves. So naturally they exalt. They, like I said, they wax proud concerning themselves. The next one is those who tend to address problems versus those who try to distract from them. So we have certain kinds of people, whenever there's an issue in their life, hey, I got a drinking problem. I need to deal with this right now. I need to fix this. This is destroying me. This is destroying my family. This is destroying my body. And then you have those who try to distract from that. Those who think, oh, you know, let's say I have a drinking problem, which I don't. I've never drank any alcohol in my life. If my wife were to come to me and say, Waleed, you got a serious issue. We need to work this one out. You're destroying ourselves. You're destroying the family. And I were to say, nah, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Then I'll just turn on a boxing match or I'll turn on the baseball game. There are those who tend to address their problems right off the bat or whenever they can. And those who tend to look away from them, they cope. Those who distract are those who cope. And, excuse me, we definitely don't want to be in that category. We have the cowardly versus the courageous, and this was kind of touched on in a few of the points before. The cowardly person, he has an overemphasis on self-preservation, whereas the courageous, he's more focused on meaning, purpose, justice, right ordering over his own preservation. So the courageous man, he'll go, let's say, he sees a woman being harassed in the street wrongfully. Somebody's trying to, God forbid, tear off her clothes and do something very inappropriate. The courageous man, he'll go forward, and for him, it's about meaning and purpose. He will not be able to sleep that night knowing that, and let's say he had like a knife on him or a gun on him or something, and he had the ability to help this person, and just the fact that out of his own fear and cowardice, he walked away, and who knows what happened to this woman. That man is focused more on purpose, meaning, destiny, as opposed to his own preservation. Whereas the guy who walks away is like, nah, it's not my problem. I don't want to get into that kind of trouble. He's focused more on self-preservation. And that's the difference between the cowardly and the courageous. You have the grudgeful versus the merciful. So the grudgeful, they tend to dwell in the past. They have no forgiveness. They're fault finders. They look at every little error in the person next to them. They just dissect them, all the shortcomings that they have. Oh, 10 years ago you were impatient and you said a cuss word to me, and they're just going to hold on to that for dear life, and they're going to just use that as a fulcrum of leverage to bring you down in arguments. Whenever, let's say, you prove them wrong on a certain matter, you call them to account for their sins, they're going to bring that past thing up, which you've repented for, which you've reformed about. You don't do that thing anymore. They're just going to use that as a weapon to put you down. This is a lot of pride as well. So you have those grudgeful people, then the merciful people who are willing to overlook, and they tend to see the virtues in people. So let's say they're dealing with a person, and the person is impatient. He gets angry very easily. He gets aggressive very easily. But then the very merciful person, the person who has a merciful heart, he may look at that other individual and say, yeah, he's angry. He's got some issues. It's tough to deal with him at times. But at least he's not passive aggressive. At least he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not a dishonest person. If he doesn't like you, he'll let you know. And this is just, you either tend towards one way or the other, mercy or grudgefulness. And obviously, God tells us in the Quran to be merciful and forgiving as well. For those who ask forgiveness, obviously there are those who they strive to commit corruption in the earth, and they know no other language than violence. And for these people, it is actually unlawful for us to show mercy to them until they first back down. But if they continue going forward, causing evil, causing corruption, giving people hardship for no reason, then we are to bring them down with might. There are some people in this world, they only know the language of violence and fear and intimidation. But at the same time, there are those who soften, those who say, hey man, I was wrong about that. I apologize. Can you please forgive me? And the grudgeful will say, no, screw you. I can never forgive you for what you did. And the merciful will say, yeah, no problem. Just please don't do that again. We can go forward from here and forget that even happened. And they're not going to bring that up over and over in future conversations. If the problem is genuinely solved and they don't commit that wrongdoing again and again and again, they're not going to bring that up. And obviously God in the Quran, he tells us to be forgiving. Would you not like God to forgive you? Yeah, I would love God to forgive me, so then I need to try my best to be forgiving to those. But at the same time, God doesn't forgive those who don't repent and change, so we don't need to forgive those who don't repent and change. Repentance and change is a necessary prerequisite to merit forgiveness. The next dichotomy is the self-accountable versus blamers. So the self-accountable, they tend to think of what they owe themselves and they owe the world. And this is related to the concept of salat or duty or dharma or divine obligations. The self-accountable, he understands that he is responsible for himself and his fate, and he needs to look towards God, and he tends to think of what he owes the world. So a classic example of this is Brother Sam Gerrans, right? He felt like he owed the world a excellent, or at least as best as he could, translation of the Quran. God gave him the intellect. God gave him the ability to work with languages. He's like a wordsmith, and he felt a duty to give the world this gift of a good translation of the Quran, a non-sectarian translation of the Quran, to develop this method of pan-textual analysis, because he's a self-accountable person. He thinks of what he owes the world and what he owes God. Not that God needs it, but what he can consecrate and dedicate towards his Lord. Whereas the blamers, they tend to think of what the world owes them. So you see, there are so many people around you, they're just so entitled. They think of, oh, they're blaming everybody for their problems. Oh, the reason I'm in a destitute situation is because my mom abused me, my dad abused me. Oh, the reason I'm smoking and drinking right now is because I grew up and my dad was smoking and drinking and he gave me a bad example. And, my first cigarette, I snuck it out of his packet when I was 13 years old. I've been addicted ever since. My dad should have never smoked and drank around me. It's blaming, thinking of what the world owes you, and this even goes to conservatism and liberalism. And obviously, in their modern iterations, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, they're both two different wings of liberalism, but at least what conservatism used to stand for, right? And they're both co-opted, but conservatism this pushed, and I'm not a capitalist, right? I don't believe in totally free market. It's very clear in the Quran. Excuse me, I'm not a libertarian because in the Quran it says that interest is haram, interest is forbidden. So we can't have a totally free market where people are just charging interest left, right, and center. No, there has to be regulations on the market. You can't spread corruption. We can't be out here selling pornography and hard drugs and things that actually cause corruption in the earth, whereas the capitalist libertarian will say, it's my body, it's my right, it's the woman's right to engage and perform in these erotic videos and then get them sold for a commission or money. No, we don't believe in that with the Quran. But those who, remember, we are a middle nation. We understand the plight of both liberals and conservatives. We see the problems on both sides and the virtues on both sides. So the liberals are correct when they talk about these companies, how they just exploit everybody. And everything is just about $1 to them. Everything is just about a profit to them. They're right. And then the conservatives, they're correct as well. When there's too much government overreach, that is also problematic for our society. Governments will abuse their power to no end. So we understand both. We're a middle nation. But those who tend towards that capitalism and free market, and they want no control, they want a fully free opportunity to make whatever they can of themselves, those conservatively minded people, they tend to incline towards self-accountability. I don't want anyone this is like the conservative capitalist mindset. I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. I don't want anybody to restrict me. I just want a fair playing field where I can exercise my abilities as best as I can and to make something of my life. Whereas the liberals, they tend to think of what the world owes them. Oh, systematic oppression and systematic racism and classism and nepotism. I'm owed this, I'm owed that, I'm owed welfare, I'm owed UBI, universal income, universal basic income. Oh, we need to help the natives and pull them out. We need to have more equal representation of women and minorities in the workplace. It's all about what the world owes you. And this is just a fundamental difference between various kinds of people. Going down the list, excuse me. Next we have the talkers and we have the doers. So the talkers, they tend to focus on idea tourism, amusement, entertainment, and trivial matters. I notice with people who are talkers, I see them in my comment sections. I see them in Brother Sam Garen's comment sections, Brother Sai. I see them as well in Brother IGOR, Sola Qur'ana, Endgame Islam. You can tell a talker because they're so concerned and they make a big stink out of relatively minor issues in the Quran. What's one that comes to my mind right now? What the king's cup was made of, what Pharaoh's cup was made of. What else is there? The 19ers, they're just big on this code and mathematics. And, if you don't believe that, then you're just the worst person. You disagree with me on just the smallest point of doctrine. Therefore, you're a kafir and I have nothing to do with you. And of course, there are issues that are greater in importance and less in importance. I consider the flat earth, that's a very, very important issue. Where you live, this is one of the greatest proofs of God. I consider, obviously, rejecting hadith as a very important issue. The Quran is the best hadith, and I don't have fellowship with those who see authoritativeness in things outside of the Quran. But then there are smaller issues. Number 19, the various mathematical miracles, which could be in the Quran, could not be in the Quran. I don't know. And they tend to focus on that instead of doing things in their life. They're talking. They're all about idea tourism. They know about every channel in this field. They're watching every single video. They don't do much. They're just talking. Whereas those who do, like Brother Sam, Brother Igor, myself, Brother Sai, they tend to focus on execution, doing things, getting them done. And they prioritize important matters because they have such little time on their hands, because they're always working and doing, trying their best to collect good deeds before their Lord, to fill up their heavenly bank account. They don't have time to talk about trivial matters, so it requires you to prioritize at that point. You got to really think, is this issue important or is it not? If it's not, then we'll leave it aside. Maybe I'll deal with it later. Maybe not at all. Maybe I'll be happy. I can be okay just not knowing anything about this. That's fine. I need to focus on what's important because I'm so busy. I'm always working. And obviously, God calls us in the Quran to be doers, to do good deeds, those who do works of reconciliation. And that's what I call you towards as well. Next dichotomy is you have the patient versus the impatient. And the patient man or woman, he or she is identified through attributes of long-suffering, stoicism, being stoic, and they're pleasant to be around, at peace with themselves. So patient people, they just have this calmness. They have this sort of, and not in a bad way, but they just seem kind of high on life. They're just gentle, they're smiling. It's not easy to ruffle their feathers. They hold themselves together. Even when people insult them, they throw shade at them. They're just calm, they're relaxed. They're secure and at peace with themselves and what they believe. Whereas those who are impatient, they're quick to anger, easily frustrated. Very quickly, they lose their stability and start to just freak out on you, right? And obviously, God calls us towards sabr, towards patience, towards righteousness. We are to try to be as calm as possible. Generally speaking, any statement that you put forward, it's not going to have any more power by you putting explicit words or swear words or extra volume behind it. It doesn't make it any more powerful. If I say, let's just say, Christianity is an idolatrous religion, I can say, and that's true, right? Christianity is an idolatrous religion. It is based on polytheism, and it's all about rejecting the oneness of God and rejecting your responsibility. I could say it like that as a patient person, or I could say Christianity is an effing, it's just, right? I can just throw that word vomit, and if I do that, Christianity is an effing this and effing that, it's a BS polytheistic shark yelling and screaming. It doesn't add any extra force to what I'm saying. Actually, it clouds and muddies the sanctity of my message. So we are to be patient, long-suffering, stoic. In the wake of distress, in the wake of hardship that comes our way, we are to look towards God and just not let ourselves lose the cool that God has given us, because it's a very valuable thing to have. Next, you have the tyrant versus freedom lovers. Tyrants, tyrannical people, it's not just governments. You'll find this in your home. You'll find this even with siblings and family members and so-called friends and bosses. Just tyrannical people. Fir'aun, he was the ultimate tyrant. He is like tyranny personified. They tend to focus on controlling others. They're very insecure. And they're also blamers as well. They blame everyone else for their problems, blame everyone else for the shortcomings in their life, and they try to control others. Whereas those who love freedom, and in the Quran, we are called towards loving freedom. Aside from basic prerequisites of morality, don't sleep around, don't charge interest, don't cause corruption in the earth, God gives us a lot of freedom to behave as we please, and He allows the believer, the believing soul, to exercise his talents in various ways. We all have different talents, different abilities, different inclinations, and God likes when we use our differing temperaments in His way. And they all may look a little bit different. So let's say somebody like me, God has given me, I believe, the ability to read and write and speak fairly well, and I exercise that in His cause. I try to write these books and make these videos. I try to street preach, warn people, talk to people about God. I use that. Somebody else may have an incredible, phenomenal athletic ability. He's just so fast and so strong, and so he just gets physical movement so well. And that person may reach the top of the sports world and talk about God in that area when he has a lot of attention on him for his physical abilities. And then from there, he talks about God and the oneness of God. We all have and I don't have that kind of strength and athleticism. I just don't. It's not in my genetic cards. And God likes when we use our various abilities and we consecrate. That's a word we don't understand. Consecration in the secular age. Consecrating means dedicating. When we dedicate all that God has given us back to him, it's a beautiful thing. And that's that kind of a system presupposes freedom. We have freedom to behave as we will so long as we uphold basic moral prerequisites. So you have the tyrant and then you have the freedom lovers who are secure. They tend to focus on simply they just want the freedom to control themselves and their circumstances. They're not interested in controlling others, and they're self-accountable as well. The next dichotomy is those who are honest versus those who are lying, right? The honest, those who are forthright with the world. Honest people, they wear their heart on their sleeves. They don't hide their intentions. I don't hide my beliefs from people. I don't hide the fact that I believe the earth is flat and stationary. I don't hide the fact that I reject hadith just to get along with people. I don't hide the fact, and I make no apologies of the fact that I believe in God, and God is the most important thing in my life, right? And then you have those who are lying. They tend to hide themselves, their motivations, what they're about, to gain what they perceive as certain advantages in the life of this world. So, of course, obviously in the Quran, we are called towards being honest, towards not fearing, wearing our heart on our sleeve, being not in a sense of ego, but proud of our faith and to not be ashamed of it. And any advantage that we'll gain by hiding our intentions, it's all just going to add fuel to the fire that we're going to burn in. There's no real benefit to it in the end. We are to be forthright. Doesn't mean we have to be angry and aggressive, just calm and control our emotions, but genuinely honest about how we feel about a situation. And the last dichotomy I have is you have workers of corruption versus workers of righteousness. So workers of corruption, those who do fasad in the earth, right? They tend towards causing others harm, damage, and misfortune for sport. You'll see this. It shows up at an early age. Kids who just like, and I was never like this, but you'll find those kids who just like to prank others. They like to, let's say, they're having a sleepover and their friend passes out an hour early, and they'll dip their friend's hand in like a warm bowl of water so he pees himself, or they might just awful thing. This is shaitania. This is satanic stuff. It's signs that this kid is being provoked by Satan, and the kid and the parents need to get involved right now to beat that out of them, and at least to instruct them properly. They might go to their friend who fell asleep at the sleepover early and write on his butt, insert here. Just they like to cause others harm. They like to cause others misfortune. They enjoy the falling apart of other people for no reason. Now, obviously, I enjoy the destruction of my enemies more than you can believe, right? If I saw Bill Gates right now just forget even him imploding, that video of that guy slamming the pie at his face, that was, to me, I received so much pleasure from that video you would not even believe, because that guy is a kafir. He is an enemy. He has caused so much damage and harm to the world. But I'm talking about, when I'm speaking about workers of corruption, I am talking about men and women, children, who just for no reason, somebody who's done no wrong to them, caused them no perceivable harm, they just like to cause suffering, and they enjoy that. That's the ruling elite today. They just like to cause suffering. They like to cause misfortune. They get off on this stuff. Whereas, contrasted with that, you have the workers of righteousness, and they tend towards reconciliation, order, and alleviating harm for those whom it is lawful. So that is what we're called to be in the Quran. Whenever we can, try to help somebody out. You see that old lady, she's struggling? Try to help her if she's comfortable with it. Cross the street. God talks about works of salihah, works that are, it's usually translated as works of righteousness, those who do salihah, works of righteousness. Another great translation of that word, which I heard from Brother Igor, Sola Qur'ana, is works of reconciliation. And when you just think about that, works of reconciliation, that's what we're to perform, it gives it a whole new layer and meaning. Reconciling means bringing things back to their right order. And we can apply that philosophy of just being workers of reconciliation to even the smallest things in our life. I think about this often. Like, for example, I do cleaning in a school. I'm a janitor, right? And before hearing about this, so I have a certain, it's a big school, and there's a certain area that different cleaners are responsible for. So I'm responsible for, let's say, B building, right? And if I'm walking through J building, I'm not responsible for J, I'm responsible for B. But let's say I'm walking through and I see a Kleenex on the ground. Before I wouldn't pick it up, I would just be like, oh, that's J building's problem. Whoever's responsible for J, they're gonna clean that. That's Kayla's issue. But now I think of doing works of reconciliation. I'm not saying I clean up all of J, but if the Kleenex is on as I'm going from J to B to going towards my building, if the Kleenex is in front of me and it would cause me no harm or no issue to just put it in my garbage can as I go forward, I will do that. Why? Because it's a work of reconciliation. I'm reconciling that. That is garbage. It deserves to be in the garbage. It should be in the garbage and not on the ground. And it causes me no harm or hindrance to pick it up and put it into the garbage where it belongs. I reconcile that small issue. So that's what we need to do. Works of reconciliation. I see two people just the other day, not too long ago. There were people outside of my house. They're about to fight each other. They're about to kick each other's butt. I hear them screaming, yelling at each other. And I just walked out and I said, "Gentlemen, is everything okay? Is everything all right?" And I was just encouraging them, don't fight, don't do that. I was trying to make justice between them, because oftentimes when people are fighting, they're shouting at each other, they're shouting past each other, they're not reasoning. And when a person comes in and tries to reason with them and shows that I'm not on either of your side, I'm not trying to fight with you, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this situation, people appreciate that. And they just, oftentimes people don't want to fight because there's just too many consequences and it's too risky and dangerous. They just want to be heard and felt like they're respected and somebody's hearing their plight. And that's what I did. And I broke up their fight, and both of them respected me in the end. They hated each other, but they said, "Thank you for coming in and working this out." And that's a worker of righteousness. That is a work of reconciliation. So these are two different kinds of people: those who like to cause disorder within the world and those who like to cause order. And now God obviously calls us to be those who bring orderliness in the world. But yeah, that's all I have for the various divisions of people. I'd say write it down, or at least put it in your mind. Register it in some way, and consider when you're going about in your day-to-day life, you're talking to people, you're arguing with somebody, especially in times of high emotion, especially when you're having arguments. Just think, which side am I tending towards at this moment? Am I tending towards the good or the bad? Am I tending towards cowardliness or courageousness? Am I tending towards working corruption, or am I tending towards right ordering and works of reconciliation, works of righteousness? Am I tending towards talking right now, or am I tending towards doing? Just think about these things. And God, He extols the virtue in the Quran of self-reflection, looking over oneself, pruning the edges and the sharpness and the problems that are within our character, and slowly making ourselves into more and more pleasing servants of the Most High. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.
Peace and blessings in the name of the Most High, viewer. My name is Walid Naeem, and I am a zealous submitter to the one true God, the creator of all mankind. Do you notice something wrong with the world? Something strange? Despite us having a church, synagogue, and mosque in every neighborhood, how has this entire Western civilization fallen into abject atheism, nihilism, and savagery? Why does life just seem so dull, so meaningless, and so devoid of anything real in the Occidental world? Despite the ubiquitous presence of these religious institutions, why are our so-called Muslim sons in large numbers drinking, smoking, partying, and chasing after women, with no seeming desire to do anything more with their life other than satisfy their base pleasures, when God has commanded them to be clean, righteous, and responsible leaders of their community? And why are our hijabi so-called Muslim daughters walking around with tight jeans that reveal their figure, with TikTok accounts posting semi-provocative, self-absorbed videos of themselves online for the world to see, when God has commanded them to lengthen their garments and be modest in their mannerisms? What has happened here? These young men and women are supposed to be making themselves right before God while raising the next generation of ardent defenders of the holy faith. But it seems that Islam features no more in their lives other than a scarf on their head, a Friday fidgeting around in the mosque when their parents forced them to go against their will, or a decorative hanger in their car. At this rate, if God allows us to continue going down the road it is, then Islam and the Quran will become pretty much non-existent in the lives of most of our descendants, if it wasn't already non-existent now. If we do not take a stand soon, in a few generations our children's children will likely be indistinguishable from the secular West. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Our kids to live in? A world practically devoid of the remembrance of the one God and all things sane? I obviously can't speak for you, but for my own self, I can personally say, count me out of it. I'm not going to sit here and just watch my brothers and sisters, those who claim to believe in God alone, believe in Judgment Day, His prophets and angels, and all the other aspects of this holy creed, get duped into going to hell. I'm not going to let this happen without at least something of an effort on my end to reroute this dark trajectory. So, again, how in the world do we end up here? There is a mosque in practically every neighborhood in the West, and no shortage of donations that get dropped in their boxes. They have had lots of funding, lots of time, and unquestioning support from their respective congregations, yet somehow have been run over by the secular atheist. All of their so-called Muslim children go to the atheist, secular public schools for most of their week to be taught beliefs that are completely incompatible with the Quran. And we wonder why they have ended up the way they are. If these houses, and by these houses I mean the mosques, were truly of God, that were doing everything right, then why would our Lord let them get so decisively trampled upon by their enemies? Why do the wicked have all of the reins of power here? Clearly, something is not adding up. Well, it is my thesis here today that the vast, vast majority of mosques that exist in this world today have lost their way and follow a religion which is completely foreign to the Quran. This is why they have failed so miserably in the West, and it seems that God has forgotten them. In truth, the real reason behind their shortcoming is that they, and many of us, have forgotten God Himself, which is why He has left us here collecting our bitter receipts. So, what are my exact criticisms of the mosques today? As a Muslim and a man committed to the truth above all else, what are my personal gripes with their institution, which claims to be for God? The first glaring problem I can think of is that the majority of people who call themselves Muslim have allied themselves with a body of literature that is foreign to the Word of God, treating it equal to, and in fact above, the Quran itself. Of course, I am talking about the Hadith. Listen, the facts are this. There is no justification within the Quran which tells us to follow this hadith stuff, which came hundreds of years after the Prophet Muhammad died, and therefore he could have had no ability to oversee what people have said about him and determine if it is true or false. It is now becoming crystal clear, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that many, many things that have been ascribed to him in their most quote-unquote authoritative texts, which they call their Sahih Hadiths, are forgeries that directly contradict God's final revelation. To take these words of men, i.e. the Hadith, and hold them to be equally authoritative to the words of God would be breaking the first and most important commandment, which is to worship God alone, making no equals with Him. To say that these supposed words of Muhammad, which are not even Muhammad's own words, but simply very doubtful rumors about what people who existed hundreds of years after him say he said, that have been decided upon by the scholars as authoritative, holds equal, or in fact any weight in our faith comparable to the verbatim words of God Himself, the Holy Quran, is idolatry. You are exalting man's words to the status of divinity, which should only be given to God's words. Nothing comes even close to the Quran, because God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is its author. This includes the Hadith too, which pales in comparison and is superfluous to the glorious Quran. If you are interested in seeing a full refutation of the Hadith, you may watch my video titled A Defense of Prophet Muhammad, David Wood and Hadith Exposed, which is linked below. In it, along with refuting and putting in his place the worst opponent of Islam on the internet, Mr. David Wood, I also expose how the Hadith is completely contradictory to the Quran and the source of much of the Muslim world's problems. It is a 2-hour-long documentary where I seek to demonstrate the true character of Muhammad in the Quran, defending his history and personality with primary source quotations. I clear the last prophet of God's name from the people who have tarnished his reputation the most, which are certain types of Christians, and, sad to say, Hadith-following Muslims, which have said many terrible things about him. No, Muhammad was not a money-hungry, tyrannical warlord who married a 6-year-old girl. He was a shy, humble, meek man who married adult women, had compassion for even his worst enemies, and oftentimes had a tough time even standing up for himself out of fear of hurting other people's feelings. This is all demonstrated in detail in my video. Once again, the link for that will be in the description under the tab, The True Character of Muhammad in the Quran. So that is the first problem with the mosques, the reason for which I feel they have been forsaken by God, their adoption of an apostate literature which contradicts their foundational scripture. The second point of contention I have with many of the mosques is their seeming unwillingness to say anything controversial which may make them face persecution from their government. The fact that 9/11 was not only an inside job, but the fact that no planes hit the Twin Towers on that day, and the whole charade was a hoax designed by the governments of the world to forever frame the Muslim people as terrorists and justify invasions in our countries, should be taught to every man, woman, and child. This great fraud of the September attacks has left such a lasting, enduring reputation on every brown person and Muslim in general that it should be discussed in every mosque. Our people are not responsible for that crime, but it was the governments of the world who carried out that plot and framed us for it. 9/11 is just only one small example, though. There are many, many other quote unquote conspiracy theories, which are really just conspiracy facts, avoided by the mosques due to their controversy, like the fact that the monetary system in the West is an ungodly scam based on usury, the fact that the so-called healthcare system is a predatory empire which doesn't try to cure anybody, but instead makes money off of human suffering, the fact that sodomite propaganda is being promoted to the masses, including our children, and the fact that the thing which I will call the C-19er, to avoid censorship, was a hoax perpetrated by the powers that be to greatly expand their police state, censorship incentives, and surveillance systems worldwide in order to create their New World Order, and much more. These governments that have occupied our lands are de facto terrorist regimes, and the mosques seem to say nothing of it. They appear to be more concerned with not being labeled extremists while they live their comfortable, well-funded lives, avoiding topics that are hard to deal with due to the abject persecution they bring. That is my second problem with them. They're at the very least lack of awareness, or if not, perhaps lack of willingness to address the real geopolitical situation going on in the world. And lastly, my third trouble with the mainstream mosques, which can also be put into the category of conspiracy facts, is their complete ignorance on the true nature of the earth. It may sound as a shock to you, my viewer, that the Quran, the Bible, and in fact all of the ancient scriptures teach the earth is flat and stationary. This is the only model of the world which is compatible with those texts and also scientifically provable. This flat earth conspiracy, which should really be called the globe earth conspiracy, is one of the biggest lies of the modern world, we are told, and goes in line with what I said earlier about the endemic corruption of the governments of the world. Everything you have been told about where you live is a fabrication, and the space agencies are a shameless hoax. For a fully detailed presentation on the subject of flat earth, where I demonstrate the science, the history, the philosophy, the verses in the Bible and Quran proving it, and much more, you can read my book titled The Flat Earth Manifesto, which is linked in the description. This work runs to nearly 1,200 pages and is practically a textbook on not only the topic of flat earth, but the subject of physics proper, and I expose the biggest fraudulent religion of the West, which is science worship, otherwise known as scientism. As with all of my work, it too is available for free. No, you do not live on a pathetic speck of dust spinning around in the middle of nowhere in space. You live in a brilliant, intelligently designed terrarium created by God and are at the center of the universe. Again, to learn more, the link to the Flat Earth Manifesto will be in the description. Those right there are my three biggest scores against the mosques of today. There are more points I could bring up, but these are the major ones. These are the controversies which have estranged me from the rest of the so-called Muslim world. Believe me when I say that I would love to join them, and that it hurts me so deeply that I have to pit myself up against the very institution I was born and raised in, the mosques I attended from childhood, whose carpets upon which I walked, stood, prayed, and listened to the preaching in my earliest years. But that is the price to pay for the truth. My commitment to God and what is right is more important than my emotional attachments to a place that was once dear to my heart. Simply put, this is why I think God has forsaken us. This is why I think that the mosques have been steamrolled by the secular atheist. It is because most of us have abandoned the word of God, neglected preaching the truth, and instead chosen comfort over courageous action. That is my thesis to why this great falling away in the West has taken place. If this sounds shocking to you, if it sounds so unbelievable that the majority of the so-called Muslim world could be deceived so badly, then I simply have these verses in the Quran to show you. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Chapter 6, verse 116. And if thou obey most of those upon the earth, they will lead thee astray from the path of God. They follow only assumption, and they are only guessing. Chapter 25, verse 30. And the messenger will say, O my Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned. God has really predicted this a millennia ago. He knew that the people who follow what is really right are few and far between, that the majority of men and women are led astray, and the people who claim to love Muhammad the most, i.e. mainstream Muslims, would abandon the glorious Quran. God has revealed to us 1,000 years ago that this all would be the case. It is my mission, therefore, by the will of God, to band together with like-minded believers who have understood the truth and work together to build a new institution from the ground up, founded upon prudent fear. We need to start fresh, start anew. We need to build a new mosque where people can hear the unfiltered preaching from the Quran alone, where men and women can get married, where children can play and be educated in the truth, and where the name of the Most High God, without any associate partners, can be remembered. We need a group of highly dedicated men who will raise and defend this institution with their own hands if need be, and go out into the world warning people of the punishment of God, bearing witness to the truth of his oneness. That is my mission, my viewer. If you found that this mission of mine has touched your heart and is something you want to get involved with, then feel free to contact me in the email below. I am located in Ontario, Canada, and I'm looking forward to form a community with like-minded believers who want to contribute to this great cause. I am neither a nationalist nor racially biased. If you follow the Quran alone and believe in the truth, then as far as I'm concerned, you are my brother in the faith. I prefer you over someone of my own kindred who denies God and commits corruption in the earth. My loyalties are primarily ideological, not racial. Remember, my viewer, that this life is short. Everything we do and don't do is recorded by God and will either bear witness for us or against us on the day of judgment. Hell is eternal, and I do not know about you, but as for me, I want to meet my Creator in the best state possible. I want to spend my life struggling to build up my people, the true Muslims, so that God may be pleased with me on that day. If you are interested in that, then feel free to join me. If not, then find something else good to do which will prepare you for your appointment with the Most High. That is where we are all going anyway. With that being said, I say peace and God bless to all of you good people. Take care, everyone.